Welcome to NASCAST 500, the only NASCAR podcast that's actually pissed that Kurt Busch got suspended. Thanks a lot, NASCAR. Filling in for Elizabeth Moxley, I'm your host, Adam Hammond. I'm with my good buddy,
Phil Matthew.
Hey, what's going on, Phil?
Not much, man. Just glad Pizza Face won instead of Hendrick.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy that a Penske car won because Penske's my favorite team, but I would have picked Brad, not Logano, but we know what the Brad blow-up situation. The 500 really wasn't that good of a race, to be honest. I mean, I've seen better Daytona 500s. The last great Daytona 500, I think, was probably 2011. We haven't really seen a great one since then.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, great Daytona 500. It's hard to, when you talk from my favorite drivers, one way back in the day, like 91, 92, Ernie Irvan and Davey Allison. For me, a great Daytona 500 is one that keeps me entertained the whole way. I was sitting there watching bowling because my favorite bowler, Parker Bone III, was on the telecast, and he ended up winning, and he's from Jersey, too. So I was watching that. I was watching golf. So the logic that you're going to tell me that this Daytona 500 was good when it was easy enough for me to go and change the channel, it definitely sucked. 2011, when Trevor won with the tandems, because I'm a fan of the tandems, anybody who really wanted to see people in control of their own destiny on these stupid restrictor plate tracks, the tandems were much better than what we have now, which is basically if you get out front, you somehow now or another get a huge run. You get out front, you just block everybody and break drafts, and it's just awful. You look at the results, and basically 4 drivers led all but 17 laps, 16 laps of the race. 187 of the 203 laps were led by 4 drivers, led by pole sitter, and in his last 500, Jeff Gordon, the Pizza Face, Junebug, and Johnson. They led basically the entire event. So if you love Hendrick Motorsports, like Rage the Creator does, or that Sucardia guy, on our page, then you probably are blowing your load. But if you don't like Hendrick Motorsports or GM in general, you're going to be pissed. Like me, also, when your favorite driver is Tony Stewart and he wrecks 40 laps into the race, you have no reason to give a fuck anymore. And I couldn't get drunk because I had to do something later that night, or else I really would have gotten wasted. But it was a bad Daytona 500. No matter what those asshole announcers say, Pizza Face, he's a goofy looking guy. I'll give Penske credit. He hires goofy looking guys because I can drive. He's very naive, to say the least. He's 24 years old. He's pretty dumb, but he can drive a race car, so he's in the chase now for whatever that's worth. Bullshit. But I'm glad a Ford won something that went on this weekend. Something that usually doesn't happen at Daytona is Ford's winning, and it actually went on all 3 days.
Yeah, I was surprised for the first 2 races. The third race, which was the 500, I was really disenchanted with it. With 5 to go, I figured Johnson was going to pull some bullshit move and bump Logano out of the way and win it because he's a piece of shit, because he likes to hog the track like he did at the duels on Thursday. So, honestly, I don't understand why nobody wanted to pass him. There was opportunities where people could pass, and another thing that I really got pissed at was the fact that there was hardly anybody was pushing Johnson, and yet he could still manage to get out in front and keep the lead while others had to fight their asses off to get back to the front. I shouldn't be surprised, though. It is a Hendrick car, so that fucking Boss Hog probably made the car special, so they would be able to keep the lead without not having to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, any event. Well, let's start with the actual points race. on Friday, which was the Next Day Era Energy Resources 250 at Daytona, the truck race. Honestly, it was a good race for the trucks. I mean, it was a better truck race than last year when Cryle won, so it was good. We had a first-time winner with Tyler Reddick for Brad's team. So to see a first-time winner for Ford, and actually Ford getting the win at Daytona in the trucks hasn't happened since 2006 when Mark Martin won. So to see Tyler Reddick get it done with one of my guys in the trucks, Eric Jones, coming home second. So it was a good truck race. But besides the fact that everyone wrecked and we had to deal with MW55 being a dipshit like normal, but at least it was Mike Joy hosting it, not fucking Adam Alexander.
Yeah, because that's the thing, they gave a shout out to Steve Burns on Sunday's telecast, thoughts and prayers. I mean, he's battling, and he's showing he's a true warrior, battling his cancer, and he's the guy who's supposed to be announcing the truck races, and everybody's filling his seat, and they had Mike Joy announcing last week. I don't know who's going to announce this week, but I think Brian Till, the sports car announcer, but at least Mike Joy, when his senility isn't kicking in, is still good enough. With Phil Parsons, he kind of was more comfortable than what he is with the bullshit artists that he has to sit with on Sunday. Adam Alexander is the absolute biggest piece of trash. One of the biggest pieces of trash in announcing. He's like the Joe Buck of motorsports, which isn't a very nice. It isn't very nice, but Joe Buck's such a goober. It's unbelievable. But it's typical Fox. They hire these jackasses that can't announce or can't provide news properly or whatever. They just do that and they just put out lies and bullshit. So, I mean, getting back to the race, though, Reddick, I had a conversation with my buddy Randy about who are guys that could be standouts for this season. I kind of said Reddick, and then he's like, yeah, he's not really that good. He hasn't, and I thought about it, like, oh, that might be true, but I thought about it more recently, especially now that he's a first-time winner. He was never really the main guy at BKR, or, you had Blaney there. When the 19 runs outside of Reddick, they were running the Cup guys, putting a little more effort. Obviously, Brad wants to make sure he puts the best foot forward no matter what, but Reddick was learning too. This is his second year into the series, first full year. He's the main guy on the team. Austin Terrio and him. Terrio is one of the best young talents there is in the sport right now. They worked together. Once all the wrecking happened, they were able to get together and make something happen. And unfortunately for Terrio, he got hung out late to finish fourth. But Eric Jones, who my pick for the championship, he was an outside pick to take over a certain seat that we'll mention later on. But Jones, he's going to be in another seat that we'll mention later on this weekend and probably for the foreseeable future. But Jones is a favorite for the title. Reddick, who's an outside guy, they both gain some points on two-time defending champion and California's own Matt Crafton, and Johnny Sauter, who's another favorite for the Truck Series crown. The one major guy that got screwed in the whole process was Timothy Peters when he got taken out early on in that for lap 40 something wreck with Ben Kennedy and all that big wreck at turn 3. That one really got Timothy Peters, and that effed up his whole entire day, and he's gonna have to come from behind again this year if he wants to get his first truck title.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot better knowing that there weren't many Cup guys worth contending for in the race, so it actually made it watchable. The finishing order, we got Reddick getting his first win. We got Jones with his first full-time ride for Kyle coming on second. Scott Lagasse was probably the best finish I've seen in an underdog situation for quite a long time. Third, Austin Theriault driving for Brad in fourth, started fourth. I figured it was going to be a BKR 1-2. Ray Black, don't even know who the fuck that guy is. Gilliland finishing sixth. Really wouldn't expect him to be in a truck and actually finish well, but oh well. Brian Silas, seventh after his hood came off, finished seventh, so that was pretty surprising. Matt Crafton, eighth, won 2 titles in a row, maybe going for 3. I don't think he's gonna though. Suarez actually having a good finish outside of the whole weekend in ninth, and then Sauter 10th. So realistically, it wasn't a bad truck race, and it was certainly better knowing that there weren't any Cup guys in there, but it wasn't the best truck race I've seen in Daytona.
Yeah, if you go back to the beginning of the truck races at Daytona, those were great races because they were basically unrestricted. The trucks actually were up off the ground, so you actually had to drive them really hard, and you had to actually drive. You had to drive them. Now they're all stuck to the ground and easier to drive, relatively speaking, of course, but. This race wasn't that great, but not having Cup participation actually helped with the overall result because they actually had to talk about some of these young guys and ladies or whatever in the race.
Yeah, well, the truck race was all right, but the Xfinity was not that bad. I thought the Xfinity race actually had some luster. Had at least something. So we'll see how that goes. We had a first-time winner with Ryan Reed with Roush Fenway. The last time Roush won at Daytona in Xfinity, I keep saying Nationwide, it's kind of hard not to say it.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time Roush won in Daytona. Oh, wait, they never did. I forgot. Reed did. He made history. He made history with becoming the first-time winner for under the Xfinity banner, and then also becoming the first driver to win for Roush at Daytona in the plate. So good on Reed for finishing, and then his teammate Chris Buescher won. So we'll just it was good. It was a good race.
Yeah, definitely it was a little more wide open than the other 2 races. More leaders, a little more balanced in terms of who could get out front. There was a little more ability to maneuver. Other than Rowdy leading the most laps, Darrell Wallace led a bunch of laps in his debut for Roush. So all 3 Roush guys did really well on Saturday. It could have been even better for Bubba if he didn't get involved in one of those in the late wreck. He would have probably been in great shape to do something. But good on Ryan Reed of type 1 diabetes. He's to go and make it there. He had a terrible year last year as a rookie, but he's learned, and he got that push from Buescher to get past Brad Keselowski after Larson and Chastain went into the woods, and that's a great story for the series. We'll see if they actually give him the proper coverage. Chris Buescher, Ty Dillon are 2 regulars. They gained some ground on defending series champion Chase Elliott in the initial. Obviously it's a first race, so he could recover, but he's already given up. You're looking at he's down 31 points to Ryan Reed to start the season. He's down some like 37, 27 points to Chris Buescher. So it'll be a tough road to hoe initially, but obviously things will balance out with all these races, and good for Ryan Reed, good for Chris Buescher. Great weekend for Ford. Great week for or day for Ford on Saturday. They had what is it? You look at the 9 cars on the lead lap, 4 of them were Fords, 3 of the top 5. Keselowski had a chance to win the Cup interloper. Dillon was Austin Dillon qualified on poles, so the Dillon brothers qualified on both poles, but didn't convert. Talk about Bubba Wallace, all sorts of Ford. I mean, the race was interesting. You give props to Ross Chastain, David Starr for their performances, staying on the lead lap. Dakota Armstrong was a lap down in 11. Mike Wallace, minus running into the back of Austin Dillon randomly under a red flag, actually got a 13th place finish. Clemens got a top 15. Mario Gosselin, who's actually done time in jail, got a 15th place finish. So, I mean, there's some random guys. There was some wrecking, not as much wrecking as the truck race, but there was wrecks and some random guys. Per plate racing itself, there's guys that wrecked, and it adjusted the finishing order.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the last few years, the Xfinity races have just been, man, last year was a bore fest to no end, and a good thing about the finish from last year, the Cup driver didn't win, so I guess we're keeping in the tradition of the Cup drivers not winning, so we had a good weekend with Reed getting the win, Busch second, the Silver Spoon brothers third and fourth, Ty third, Austin fourth, Brad came home fifth, almost had the win, but lost on the last lap. David Starr, probably the biggest upset in finishing order for the Xfinity, other than the winner, Ryan Reed. Almirola, drive the 98, finished 7th. Larson, great run for him. I figured that he would have been a contender if he wouldn't have been so bad at the end with the little spin. Ross Chastain, I didn't even figure he'd even finish in the top 10, so good on him. And then Junior 10th. So it was an all right Xfinity race for the first Xfinity banner. So we'll see how it gets later on down the line, but it was a pretty good opener.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, well, let's move on to the quote-unquote biggest race of the year, which is the Daytona 500. Everyone, every media outlet, Fox, NBC, J-Ski, YouTube, every other place that you can think of is boasting about the Daytona 500 to no end, about how great it's going to be. And it turns out to be one of the worst Daytona 500s in recent memory, at least in my opinion. The finish really was a weak finish. We really didn't get to see an underdog win, which would have been cool. We didn't even get to see them race back to the race, to the checkered, which NASCAR should have let them do, like they did on Saturday. But of course they didn't. They wanted to see the race, the biggest race of the year, end under caution. So I don't understand that. But I'm not mad at Logano that one, even though I can't stand a punk. But I'm glad it was him in a Penske Ford and not Johnson in the 48, because since Kyle, with the issue with Kyle Busch, I'm just glad that it turned out to be someone that if you got to look between the two lesser of the two evils, I'd rather pick Pizza Face over Fixback any day.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's a lesser of two evils result, because I don't really care. I don't hate Joey Logano. I don't really care. I mean, he's become a really solid driver. In terms of what Mark Martin said, he's the best thing since sliced bread. He's actually starting to really live up to that. He just needed to leave Gibbs to do it. I mean, he was one of the dominant cars all day, so the logic that he was there and actually pulled it off is not all that surprising. He was the only non-Hendrick car because there was a Hendrick benefit. As we mentioned before, it's like I wasn't lying, because when they were leading, it usually is boring as hell and not great. And then you add the horrible announcing and analysis from all the other idiots they have on there, and it was one of the crappier Daytona 500s in recent memory. Anything that involves a Hendrick car winning usually is really bad. I mean, Trevor Bayne winning was good. Jamie Mack because of the story and his emotion, Kenseth, winning. The second time was boring. The first time was like, oh, it's all right, rain short and whatever, it's okay. The 2008 Daytona 500 pissed me off till the end of time, but the thing is, Daytona 500 wasn't that good. And then if your driver is like somebody like Tony Stewart, like me, or Brad Keselowski, then you're going to be really pissed because neither of them had good fortune on Sunday. I mean, Tony got wrecked 40 laps into the race, so it was like a complete cluster F, and I wasn't even having it. I would have rather watch PBA Tour or golf, and I did because I didn't want to watch that nonsense. And if it's a good race, I would be able to tune it away. I would have to watch it the whole time, and I mean, Fox doesn't help with their horrible coverage either, but it is what it is. We're on to Atlanta and two major people that are missing.
Yeah, well, Daytona, this is usually how the Daytona 500 works for me. They usually like to build you up and say, oh my god, it's the first points race of the season, get pumped, and then when you get there, it's just boring. And the same thing happened last year, but of course, all the HMS fans were pissing their pants when Junior won, so, I mean, what, it is what it is. So, we'll just head on to Atlanta. Hopefully, we'll actually see a good finish. Let's get down to the running order. Logano won the race. Good run on him, even though I can't stand the punk. Harvick finished second. Pretty sure that if the caution hadn't flown, he would have won. Goonier coming home third, where he started, so that's all good. Hamlin, fourth for first good run for the Gibbs guys. Fixed Pat coming home fifth after leading mostly the rest of the laps and then getting trolled at the end. So yeah, fuck you, Johnson. You don't deserve a win. Mears coming home sixth. That's pretty surprising. Not because it's Casey Mears at restricted plate tracks. You don't really expect much. Then you got Boyer seventh, who really could have had a shot to win, but he just kind of got shuffled late. Truex, great run for him. Great Speedweeks in general for Furniture World Racing. For the fact that Truex nearly won the shootout, nearly won one of the duels. If he would have won the Daytona 500, it probably would have made the weekend a lot better. Candy Cane ninth, and then that bug-eyed dummy 10th. So it was honestly, if I compare 2015 to 2013, it's 2015 is a way better race, but I haven't seen a great Daytona 500 since 2011.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a fan of I was a fan of the tandems, and it allowed people to race and actually get away from others and make some things happen. You're able to pass. There's a lot of passes for the lead instead of people just going and dropping anchor and not being able to be passed. So, I mean, Trevor Bayne, the story you'll never be able to beat. That's one of those stories I'll never be able to be beaten in the history of the Daytona 500. And actually, Trevor Bayne had a fast car. He got wrecked late in the race, but he had a fast car on Sunday. Like, he was an outside shot. Our boy Richard went and got taken out late as well, and he had a fast car all during Speed Weeks, but he couldn't close the deal. But that's not shocking. So.
Yeah, well, glad Richard wrecked, and I actually said that when he wrecked. Oh, Richard. So, anyway, of course, the biggest stories besides the 500 was the issues with the Busch brothers. If you haven't heard by now, you're probably living under a fucking rock and don't have a computer or phone. So, if you haven't, we'll let you tune in. Well, Kurt Busch basically has been suspended indefinitely. We'll just say suspended in quotes because it's a load of bullshit. With the issue with Pocket Commando, Patricia Driscoll, and their little issue that has been going on since September with the assumption, quote unquote, that Kurt bashed her head against the wall and took him to court for domestic violence, won, and basically got what she wanted, which was to destroy Kurt Busch, which she did. I hate that bitch to no end. And then the second piece of news with the Busch brothers, Kyle, whom I've never really met anybody that actually genuinely likes Kyle Busch. But in any event, he broke his leg in the XFinity race while he wrecked. And although that I can't stand the dickhead, it sucks that he broke his leg, and I never really want to wish injuries on another driver. So hope Kyle gets better soon. But in any event, it's just been a terrible weekend for them. Actually, a terrible month for the Busch brothers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Kurt's life and career, I mean, his choices of women are going to be legendary because they're going to be the end of them. Pocket Commando, the latest in the line of women that have basically destroyed his life. I mean, I don't condone violence against women, all right? I'm going to put it out there. I shouldn't have to qualify it, but I don't condone violence against women. But at the end of the day, this Pocket Commando has been in relationships with 3 men in some sort of profile, and each one of those relationships I've went to court for an accusation of domestic violence. So the logic that, it's only the guys that are involved in the process, she's not working with a full deck of cards to begin with. Was she asking for it? I don't know what happened. It's a he said, she said thing. And the idiot judge who ruled in family court in favor of Pocket Commando is on the assumption that he might have. I don't have the exact language, but when you consider the kind of language they're using to describe the charge, it's dubious at best to go and suspend somebody on an assumption. But BZF wants to go and make an example out of Kurt, and that's what he's doing, and Pocket Commando's cutting him a check to do so. And so all in all, it's just a typical run-of-the-mill BZF driving the sport into the ground and destroying a guy's career who actually is a champion and had reformed himself, minus his choice in women. It's just a shame, really. I don't see what sign there's going to be of him coming back and driving a cup car. I think he'll probably either drive an Indy car or a pro stock car. But in Kyle's case, when you go off the racetrack at 80 miles an hour and hit a wall straight on, it's not going to be good news no matter what. Compound fracture of the right leg, broken left ankle and foot, I believe. So he really jacked himself up in that race, and Joe Gibbs is probably sitting there cursing the world. Well, he can't. He's a freaking religious freak, actually. He's probably saying, God, I know there's a thing about karma, but really in this place, at this time when Kyle was probably in a mindset that was pretty good, considering his wife's having their first child and all this, and now he's going to be sat up in a freaking recovery for months, and it's a brutal burn for him. But I figured at some point his luck was going to run out with all these truckin and XFinity races he insists on running, that something is going to eventually happen that adversely affected him and adversely affected his sponsor and team. And it shows the selfishness by which Kyle Busch, how selfish he really is, because he sacrificed himself, and now he won't win the Cup title, he won't win the Xfinity title, owner's title. In the end, it's an all-losing battle because he needs to drive these races. I mean, it's bad. I feel bad for the guy and hope for a speedy recovery, but he just screwed himself for no reason.
Yeah, it's kind of karma catching up with him. I mean, he's been running Xfinity and trucks while doing Cup since he's been with Gibbs longer than he did when he was with Hendrick. So eventually something was going to keep him doing less and less races. And maybe this is a sign that maybe he needs to give up on Xfinity and and just focus on Cup, something he should have been doing since 2008. But of course, Kyle likes to win, and he's the king of the minors. So I mean, that's just typical Kyle. I mean, he would rather break his leg doing something that he shouldn't even be doing in the first place, rather than competing for a bigger and better title, which is the Sprint Cup title plus Sprint Cup races. But it's Kyle Busch. Not really surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of the Busch brothers, with the issues that they've experienced, neither of them will race in Atlanta, and it's probably the first time since 2001 that Busch brother of any kind was at Atlanta. And with that, we have their replacement drivers. Regan Smith going to be again in the 41, and the 18, which was announced today that although most people believed it was Eric Jones, it's going to be David Ragan, surprisingly, in the 18 in Atlanta. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two different drivers driving for two different teams, basically the same team, for Busch brothers. So we'll see how they run in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, for Regan Smith, he's kind of a mid-range guy. He's a nice guy, upstate New York guy. He's a mid-range driver in Cup. His place is XFinity. He's a top 5, top 10 contender. He's in the Sam Hornish kind of, mid-range mold. 15th place, like 23rd, kind of, he's gonna get the car to the end of the race. He's gonna give you a chance to get a decent finish. That's what Regan Smith is there for. The way Stewart-Haas Racing is handling the hire, it's a race-to-race kind of thing. It's entirely possible there might be somebody else in the car. I don't know. It was keeping up with the NASCAR media, the Facebook page, and I was saying, I don't know if it was that one or Race Fans Only, one of them, but it's like they're trying to hold out for the big name. I mean, Gene Haas is preoccupied with his F1 program and getting that one off the ground, but I also know that losing the driver he chose, he wants to have a big name, and I figured Chase would get that opportunity because, they're going to give him 5 Cup starts, but I think probably by after Martinsville, they're probably going to go and say, hey, if Kurt isn't back by then they'll probably give Chase an opportunity in that car. And with Reagan, it's a home race this weekend at Atlanta. Solid yet unspectacular driver as well, mid-range guy. He drove for Roush for a few years. They basically now have Roush circa 2010 minus Bug-Eyed Dummy. It's an all right hire. I think they could have went and made a real progressive hire and gotten like a Michael McDowell or somebody that has never really gotten an opportunity and went from there. But to each his own. They're both way richer than I am, so they know what they're doing. We'll see what happens with those two.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how everything goes in Atlanta with the new season, the new everything. Personally, though, I'm more excited for Atlanta than I was for Daytona, but that's not really surprising considering how lame Daytona's been the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta, they're going back to a race in the winter again. It had been that they used to have both races in basically it was fall for the last race of the year, but for the spring, what they call the spring race really was in winter. So going back because of locality, because of access for the teams is good. I think it'll be solid racing. Curious to see the doubleheader on Saturday. The trucks and XFinity will have a doubleheader, which is an idea they probably should implement more often if they're going to have these crappy schedules for both series, to have the doubleheaders so you get 2 races on 1 ticket. Cup Series is going to debut the new motor package and aerodynamic tweaks. And so 500 miles at Atlanta is always tough, so we'll see what happens with that. And after Ford blew up two motors on Sunday, you wonder how they'll be tuning them for this weekend. I'm not sure what the weather is, but in general, I love Atlanta. It's one of my favorite tracks, even though SMI is trying to kill it. It's a really good racetrack. You can race from top to bottom, and you actually have to drive to get around there. So that's why I'm looking forward to Atlanta this weekend. So we'll see.
Me personally, I would like to see them go back to the original schedule from the 90s, have Richmond be the second race, and bring back North Wilkesboro and all these other great racetracks, and get rid of all the shitty ones like Kentucky and Kansas. But since it's Regan Smith and BZF, that's going to be a chance in hell of that happening.
Yeah, we're stuck with a bunch of crappy cookie cutter tracks instead of short tracks where you can actually race, beat and bang, put on some real entertainment. So, I mean, I'm not going to go and sweat something that I have no control over. And unfortunately, that's one of the many reasons why the sport is going down the toilet, is this dictatorship that BZF has on the BZF and Groomsmith have on all these tracks, and it puts on most of them put on terrible shows. Atlanta's the exception because it just destroys tires. So yeah, you can make passes, but you're also going to have to go and finish the job, and so Atlanta provides good racing. We should see a good weekend of action.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes, but we'll see. Speaking of replacement drivers, as most people know, Brian Vickers not going to be in the 55 till next week in Vegas, which unfortunately I'm not going to. I was going to go, but just shit happened at the last minute. In any event, MW55 was in the Daytona 500 and didn't do nothing, surprisingly. And the guy who's going to be in the 55 this week is Brett Moffitt. I mean, I heard of him, and he raced in the 66 once, I think, last year. But, they could have picked better drivers for that issue. They could have picked someone worth replacing Vickers. But in any event, as long as it's somebody who knows how to drive, he's probably a ton of a better driver than MW55.
Yeah, I mean, that's MW55 having a bad Daytona 500. He basically parked in the duel and gave Pucamani a chance to make the show. And in the race itself, he wasn't a factor, and that's great because that's one less person that DW can go slobber on.
Yeah, well, I think Moffitt will. I think he could be a talent if they just give him some time. But I mean, I haven't really seen this kid do anything in Xfinity or trucks to make me believe he can actually be a Cup driver. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, with Moffitt, he's a young gun. But as per the other young guns that are driven for Michael Waltrip, they either end up fired or losing their job because of some dubious pretense. Moffitt, I think, will do better than what he did at times last year. He had a year to learn. Basically, I think he should be able to produce something, produce a decent finish, produce a better finish than MW55 on Sunday. So.
Well, and speaking of that dickhead who runs NASCAR, technically, Mr. BZF, I'm on J-Ski right now, and it's an article saying France, safety, performance, and our NASCAR hallmarks. Let's listen to this shit. On Monday, NASCAR Chairman and CEO Brian France explained the secret to the sport's success in creating a level playing field and expressed the importance of safety. He also told SiriusXM Radio that Joey Logano leads a group of young drivers coming up in the sport. Everybody gets an opportunity on equal footing to compete, and that's a very hard task for us because we have 43 teams, 3 manufacturers, and a lot of smart people trying to game any rules package that we put forward, France said. To get an advantage, that's what they do. That's what they should do. When we're able to boil all through that and make sure that everybody is on equal footing, that's when we win. And if we do that in a safe way, then we really win. France addressed the caution flag that ended the Great American Race with a multi-car wreck on the backstretch at the World Center of Racing. We obviously err on the side for safety. France said of the yellow flag that ended the race after the field received the white flag on the first attempt at a green-white checkered finish. That's of course what we're going to do in this case. NASCAR officials believed that they couldn't clear it off, and it was just too dramatic. We would have loved to have finished it perfectly under green, but it wasn't the case. I don't really think it would have changed anything in this case. Joey Logano had broken out and established himself. It also would have been very difficult to overcome him in any situation. France also addressed Kyle Busch's crash in Saturday XFinity Series race at Daytona Nashville Speedway President Joey Chitwood III pledged to ring the track with safer barriers. Joey Chitwood said it best that, hey look, if that's unacceptable. France said that I'm not having a safer barrier on the front stretch where Busch crashed. We're going to own that and move forward. That's how we're wired. That's a cornerstone of what we do. Sadly, safety and performance are the hallmarks of NASCAR, he added. If we don't get safety right, then nothing else really matters. Fuck you that piece of shit. Why don't you go snort coke and go get some hookers or something? That's what you're good at.
Yeah, I mean, BZF doesn't know what the hell's going on. I mean, it took Kyle Busch hitting a wall at 80 miles an hour for some of these people to wake up and understand that there's a bigger problem than safety. Some of the rodents and some of the things, like a rodent, that's what he is. He's just a piece of trash, BZF, and it's all these rules and talking about adjusting formats and things of that nature. It's insane to me how this sport, and then Joey Chitwood goes and says, oh yeah, now we're going to react. Like, the problem with NASCAR is they take credit for things even though they had nothing to do with them, like the safer barrier. It was an Indianapolis thing first, long before NASCAR got to it. It took so many people dying of basilar skull fractures for that to happen. The Hans device is another thing. Like, safety, it's not about, safety is paramount, this and anything. Safety is paramount for the drivers and teams, and NASCAR doesn't care. And it's cutting corners and doing stuff that is just not right for kids, or just not right for anybody. I really don't care what BZF said, and the people that are involved in it. The point is, these people should offer better options in terms of safety. They should also have better guidelines for a lot of major aspects of the racing. And BZF doesn't know what's going on. The fact you showed the Daytona 500 is a minor miracle anyway. So it's, he can go fuck himself.
The thing I can't really stand with him is that he thinks he's helping NASCAR and making it better, but he's probably so fucking out of his mind that he doesn't know what he's talking about or even thinking about. He just says what he says because, he looks like someone who lost his mind a long time ago, so not really surprising.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get divorced.
Yeah, not to mention when you're in a famous family like the Francis, you gotta have enough money to blow on hookers and cocaine. So, in any event, we're gonna pass down to something that's actually good for the sport and for a driver that is really respected to everybody. I've never really met anybody that didn't respect this guy. Richard Petty. He's being inducted to the Speedway Lane Hall of Fame. This is on J-Ski. Richard Petty, a 7-time NASCAR champion, winner of over 200 career races, and a 2010 NASCAR Hall of Fame inductee, continues to collect numerous accolades for a legendary career behind the wheel of a stock car that began nearly 60 years ago. Petty will be inducted into the city of Hampton, Georgia's Speedway Lane Hall of Fame in a ceremony at 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, February 26th. No, that's tomorrow. As the home city of Atlanta Motor Speedway honors the racing legend to kick off its 4-day 2015 NASCAR weekend. Established in 2013, Hampton Speedway Lane Hall of Fame honors influential drivers with strong ties to Georgia and Atlanta Motor Speedway. Its current members include Fayetteville, Georgia's Rex White and Dawsonville, Georgia's Bill Elliott, both 2014 NASCAR Hall of Fame inductees. Special speakers at the ceremony will include Patty, Hampton Mayor Steve Hutchison, and Atlanta Motor Speedway President Ed Clark. Additionally, a special tribute will honor the late Captain Kurt Emery, longtime local Atlanta traffic reporter, a passionate civic activist, an icon in the motorsports press community. So, I mean, it's great. I mean, Richard Petty's one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. So for him to continue his legendary status, even though he's been at NASCAR racing for 22 years, it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the thing. We'll see what happens this weekend with the racing and see what we get out of some of these major stories that goes on. But I'm curious as to, minus the safety aspect and them not really caring, I'm surprised. I want to see what the Cup cars drive like on a very abrasive surface with a lot less horsepower. If tire conservation plays a bigger role versus wrecking or other things because of some of these things you have to click off or whatever. I'm just done with the bullshit that BZF does because it's gotten old and it's getting older and eventually it's gonna wear really thin.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how a lot of people aren't on BZF's case. I mean, half the people that watch NASCAR nowadays really don't even question Brian France's bullshit. They just go with it. I mean, that's what most people do now. Even back in the day when NASCAR was still good but getting shitty and people could see it, they just thought, whatever. They didn't really do anything about it. And, the longer BZF continues his Hitler-like reign over NASCAR, it's just going to get worse. And eventually it's just going to be so bad to the point where people are just going to give up watching it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, moving off of that, let's go to our next article, which is found on JSki as well, with the issue with Nashville Superspeedway. A lot of people forgot Nashville, including me until now. Nashville, there's something going on with the track. The closing deadline on the sale of Nashville Superspeedway in Wilson County by Dover Motorsports to Nexovation Inc. has been extended to March 27th, according to recent filing. Nexovation Inc. announced in May an agreement to purchase the racetrack from Dover and its subsidiary Nashville Speedway USA Incorporated for nearly $46 million, $27 million in cash, and the assumption of about $18 million in bond obligations owed to Wilson County. It's the fifth time that the closing has been extended. The most recent deadline had been set for February 25th. The excavation had already paid $1.7 million in non-refundable payments that will be set that will be supplied to the purchase price. The filing Dover filed Friday with the Securities and Exchange Commission states that excavation paid $200,000 for the latest extension, which is non-refundable, but will not be applied toward the previous purchase. Excavation has now paid $400,000 total for the last two deadline extensions that is not refundable and won't be refunded nor applied to the purchase price. So, I mean, this is the issue that I've been seeing a lot lately with these racetracks. They keep getting sold. With the case with Rockingham, with that little issue, now we have Nashville. I'm just wondering what's next on that little list. I'm thinking Nazareth could possibly be another track on that list that's going to have issues getting sold.
I mean, the thing with Nazareth is I live like an hour away from Nazareth, and I was only able to see the outside. The weeds are all grown up and around it, and they took all the grandstands away from there, and there might be the silhouette of the track and things that you could see, but overall that track has been condemned. And it's the same with Rockingham. The same thing is going to happen there. It's the same way Wilkesboro started growing weeds and stuff. a mismanagement and BZF or the Francis and the Smith family, Bruton and Marcus and all of them have done everything in their power to make it a monopoly between the two of them. The racing has suffered, and it's a shame, really, but I figure The Rock will go next, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks that all these great racetracks that provided great racing are just going under the ground, and nobody really seems to even ask about it anymore. I mean, that's kind of the case what happened with Riverside, which is my all-time favorite racetrack. But the reason with that is most people just figured Riverside was old and needed to be removed, and the guy who bought Riverside turned it into a goddamn mall and a housing track that nobody even goes to that fucking mall anymore, which is a damn shame, really.
Yeah, I mean that's the product of today's NASCAR. They used to actually give people chances, and the numbers in the stands, while they made a difference, weren't the end all be all of what it is now, because now you need to have 100,000 seats to hold a cup race, even though they're lucky to fill 50. You know, like you should keep it in perspective. That's why Iowa should be on the cup schedule, and trucks twice and Xfinity twice, because that's a great racetrack. But obviously, they don't want to race at great racetracks. They'd rather race at cookie cutter.
Yeah, well, you know, the sooner we get Helton and France out of office, the sooner NASCAR can get back on its feet. Just hopefully we'll find somebody who can actually run the goddamn thing and not take a shit on it like BZF has done for the past 12 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, another piece of business back onto the driver issue between the Busch brothers. Now we're having another driver issue. On J-Ski, who will drive the 34 with the announcement that Reagan's going to be in the 18 this week? Another question that came to mind is who's going to be in the 34? Front Row Motorsports needed a replacement, but David Ragan is kicking himself. The former Sprint Cup driver had the opportunity to race for Front Row Motorsports this weekend in the number 34 Ford at Atlanta Motor Speedway. However, Ragan is traveling in California, told Motorsport.com on Tuesday that he had not renewed his NASCAR license for 2015. Ruderman says he hopes to return racing at some point. Renewing his NASCAR license and getting his physical would be a good place to start. Bobby Labonte has been mentioned as a fill-in for David Ragan this weekend. Sources confirmed that the team has talked to 2000 champion with 48 entries for the Sprint Cup race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Labonte's past champions provisional will come in handy. I mean, I'm one of the guys that would like to see Bobby in the 18, you know, give it kind of like a retro thing from the 90s to early 2000s. So I wanted that to happen, but I knew it wasn't going to happen. So if Labonte is in the 34, good on him. I mean, he's like one of the last few drivers of a dying breed that came into NASCAR hot-leaded, did everything he could to become a great driver and won the championship in 2000, won a lot of races, basically put Joe Gibbs Racing on the map. So we'll see how that goes on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, with Bobby Labonte, if he gets the ride, I mean, he was limiting his schedule from basically full-time to 4 races. Whoever they have otherwise, I mean, it's very hard to find drivers at this point when you've got so many sponsors and things committed to the sport in general, and they've got a name, they have to commit to the name, and once they committed to that for the sponsorship and everything, it's for the year. How are you going to go and turn around and make it, you know, Bubba Wallace or some kind of guy like that, you know, yeah, I mean, the people that they have, you're not going to get some of those young guys to drive a Front Row Motorsports car. You're going to get a guy that's either out, washed up, or somebody in that office. So, I mean, I guess we'll find out Friday. We'll probably find out tomorrow or Thursday, worst case.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this week in Atlanta it'll actually be decent. But, you know, since it's on Fox, we'll probably have to put on some music to actually tone out the douchebags on Fox. I mean, the only one I can stand is Mike Joy.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Joy has his moments for me, too. But It's a 500-mile race, so I won't be watching the whole way because it's 325 laps. It's like a 4-hour race. I'll pass on watching it until a couple of passes over, really. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, normally at this time, Elizabeth would announce the plugs, and I'm going to do so and take her place in this case. If you want to get in touch with us, the NASCAST people, we now have a YouTube page, www.youtube.com/NASCAST500. If you can't find it, then just type in NASCAST 500 in the search bar, and you can find it. The first 7 episodes of the show have been uploaded. More will be uploaded as soon as I can. If you want to find me on YouTube, my personal account, www.youtube.com/SunnyBurnett1988. I post a lot of 80s stuff and some NASCAR stuff also. If you want to get in touch with me on Facebook, www.facebook.com/AdamHusbandOnTheRider. I'm also, if you want to take a look at the NASCAST group page that we have on Facebook, www.facebook.com/groups/NASCAST500. And if you want to join us, go right ahead. Bill, got anything?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/PhilipGMatthew. I'm on Twitter @PhilipGMatthew. I usually tweet during the races and retweet things that I'm interested in, usually involving racing or hot chicks. My blog, the Unfiltered blog with a P, is my name, full name, and the winner with Andre Miller finishing. So Facebook, Twitter, the Unfiltered blog, we're going to get some stuff going. Adam has already written a solid piece about Young Money, so stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for my first piece. Also, a shout out to Stave Stock Car Racing, that with Chuck Ellison, his website, they're getting that one back up off the ground, and we'll probably have multiple Crusaders against what has become a generally vanilla, crappy sport.
Forgot to add, if you want to get in touch with me on Twitter, although I don't go on there much, I'm at the Desert Bandit. Don't have many followers, but would appreciate if someone would follow me. If you also want to follow our NASCAST Twitter page, yeah, we got a Twitter, at NASCAST500. And if you want to take a look at what we do, just go right ahead. And of course, we're not going to post anything that's going to be ass-kissing to Johnson or Kyle or anybody, BZF and Pukemania and Richard. So Richard. can't go wrong there. So for my buddy Phil, for the
Till you're 93. Oh no, change